be made available to you all, and I'll be emailing out a link. So without any further ado, Stuart, over to you.
Thank you very much, Lauren. Welcome everybody to our session today. As Lauren's saying, we're going to be covering Office 365, particularly the cost optimization side of things, how we get the most out of it, ensuring that we're not overspending, we're provisioning all of our subscriptions to the correct levels, and the complications that come alongside with integrating with on-premise licensing also. So just to get everybody used to the Slido platform that we're going to be using throughout this session, we're just going to open a quick poll now. In one word, describe your feelings and your experiences with Microsoft or Office 365. And you can enter more words than just the one, so please feel free, just go into that poll now and start entering some words for us. We're starting off with some positivity there, and then straight to the expense side of things. That is not a surprise.
We'll just give it a couple more moments. Okay, here we go. That's a nice variety.
Yeah.
Leave it open for a couple more seconds. The word, whatever you can think of, first thing that comes to mind. Okay, so we'll close it down in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So there you go, Stu.
Okay, so not surprising there, we're getting a very mixed message there, but I would say leaning more to the positive side of things. You know, we're seeing they're useful but expensive, powerful, amazing, you know, really evocative words. To see, it's very much feelings that people are coming across there rather than the experience side of things. So it is a very emotional thing that we have with this. We spend lots of money on these products and we want to make sure that we get that value and good movement out of it. So thank you very much, Lauren. If we could go back to the slides, please. So the key thing with any subscription software, whether we're talking 365, whether we're talking Azure Cloud, whether we're talking other providers, Google Creative, Adobe Creative Cloud, all of those things is knowledge. You know, understand exactly what you've got and what you're using and why you need that within your organization. So the first question you need to ask yourself is, what is Office 365? Well, Office 365 is a bundling of some traditional on-premise software that we know and love, like Office Professional Plus, integrating with some server technologies that were traditionally online as on-premise as well, like SharePoint, Exchange, and moving all of this into the cloud so that we have different offerings and capabilities out there. You know, there in the E1 plans, we see some really new, powerful and compelling products like Streams for doing videos, Power Apps for automation, and Sway for communicating news information. These are all really powerful tools that allow us to collaborate and communicate with our organizations in ways that we've just not been able to before. And then as we move up to the E5 plans, we get really powerful tools in there like Power BI Professional, you know, strong analytic capabilities that take Excel up to a complete another level beyond those power pivots that we've all been used to using over the years. What we traditionally see is a lot of customers, they'll go in and they will buy everybody at the same level. So they'll buy an E3 plan or an E5 plan potentially. And this is predominantly seen because they're looking at their EA commitment. So people are coming from enterprise agreements. Some people may be coming from select, or really old school select, MPSA agreements, should I say, and they're coming into this area. But under those EA agreements, they will have a commit level. So they know I've got a number of qualified users and I have to have an enterprise product associated with those. And the Office 365 and Microsoft 365 are those enterprise products. So if you've got those products and services EA agreements, you have to cover every user with one of these E plans. So typically we see customers will go, we'll go in the middle, we'll go E3 for everybody because we want that Office Pro Plus capabilities. Now, what we also see is that it's the limitations that come with these different packages that helps the customer understand where they need to be. And what we see is the difference of the E plans to the F plans. And there is a really big difference we see here because there's a lot more limitations. We can see that you don't have access to the online to the install of applications. You can only access your email via webmail. You only have a 2 gig limit. So customers tend to stay away from the lower F plans and move towards those E plans. But these EF plans are really important and they're really valuable to lots of organizations. If you have people that are working in different scenarios, it can be of value. So if we take, for example, a call center, I've got 3 people that use the same device throughout a 24-hour period. I don't want to buy 3 licenses for those people because it's the same device, same usage. It's going to get used. So this is where the F plans really come into place because the user is no longer a dedicated user of a device. They are a shared device. Many of us are working from home today. We have laptops, so they are dedicated devices. So the F plan here is not going to work for us in that scenario. We need those E plans to have those on local installs of Office for what we need to work on. But it's really about understanding what our organizations need out of these products to be able to make sure that they are buying the right thing. What we're going to go through now is very much showing you how SHI delivers this information back to the customers from our cost optimization service. The bit that's missing when you talk about Office 365 is the server component side of it that around security. So this is delivered in the EMS plan, so enterprise mobility and security. Microsoft bundle that with Office 365 and call it Microsoft 365. A really, really good positioning for organizations that want to make the most out of Microsoft products. And this is where Microsoft will generally drive you. They will give you the bigger discounts for you bundling in all of these items. But just look at what we've got on the screen there. How many of those products are you actually going to use within your organization? You've got the ability to use them, but could you use another service instead? Could you use a third-party product for multi-factor authentication? Could you use something else for self-service password reset, for example? These are all things that are bundled in there, and Microsoft will talk about the value of all of these items to get you to go to those larger items. They will give you the larger discounts for going for the E3, E5 plans rather than the F3 and E1 plans, items like that. And again, we've got to be very, very careful in making sure we make the right selections. If you have a plan that includes the Microsoft F1, you get a very limited version of Windows. So you can get Windows locally on a machine, but you have no imaging rights. You have no virtualization rights. You have no downgrade rights. So you have to be on the latest and greatest on the branch updates that Microsoft are sending out at their will. And traditionally, we see lots and lots of customers that have invested in imaging technology like SCCM, for example. They are already working that. So they've now got to look at doing different ways of deploying Windows. So Microsoft provide those capabilities as part of the packaging to image on the go, but they are different ways of working to what we're used to. So the licensing is suddenly driving how our organizations work, and it really pushes things forward. And that's very much what we were just talking to there. So I should have skipped on a slide, but I missed that one, so apologies. We're going to go and open a quick poll now within Slido once again. So we want to understand, on average, what percentage of 365 users are active. What we mean there is that they have a subscription assigned to them and they use it within the next 30 days or the last 30 days. So how many people have subscriptions and are actually using them? So we've got our first few responses coming in there. Nobody's optimistically and gone with that 90 to 95%. Oh, there we go. We've got some selection in there, Lauren.
Yep. It looks like most of them are probably within the 70 to 80%. We'll give it a couple. We'll give it a couple more seconds just to see if anybody. Okay. Okay, so we'll close it down in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Okay, good stuff. So we can see most people are going in for that lower option. They think it's that 70 to 80%. There is some very optimistic people there that see it at 95%. So if we can go back to the slides now, and we'll look at the actual numbers that we see across our customer set. So service adoption wise, averaging, we're seeing 76.8. So those of you that were guessing in that 70 to 80 range, absolutely spot on for what we see. We do actually see some customers that have really understood what their business requirements are around Office 365, and they have 100% of their users who are assigned subscriptions using them in a 30-day period. We also have some that are not quite so well adopting. As you see there, the worst data that we see at the moment is a customer at 5.6% adoption. Now, what we're going to talk through now is the data behind some of these numbers, and very much there's stories behind all of these. Now, 5.6%, I would suggest that there is something going on within that organization, that they are maybe just on their first steps into 365, or they're moving away from 365, but there is probably nobody that's actively running at 5.6%. Let's have a look at some of the data as it comes in. If we look at a not so good organization, this is not our 5.6%. I thought I would save from that information. This is just another low end adoption subscriber. What we can see here is that we have 2,161 active users, but we have 4,070 that have been allocated subscriptions but not using them. But that data on its own needs more information to make us understand what that means. So what we see in the middle of the screen here is the actual adoptions of the individual services. So there may be 2,161 people that have used something in the last 30 days from their subscription. But actually, we see the adoption of Exchange is only just touching 30% there. And Exchange, we tend to see as the indicator. Most organizations, that's the first service they take up from 365. Let's look at a customer that's really doing well with their adoption. So again, we've got about 2,225 active users, but we only have 59 inactive users. And what's really good to see here is those adoption levels. We're not just got high number of users, they're using lots of services. We can see 90+% utilization across Exchange, OneDrive, SharePoint, and Teams. And that's a typical spread of the type of products people use. Skype for Business has an end of life of, I think it's roughly a year. I think it's June next year that product goes end of life. So it's great to see this customer has moved away from Skype, or never potentially went to Skype, and has made that move to Teams. And Yammer, yeah, we'll just leave that there. It's Yammer. So let's have a look at a customer at scale now. This customer is very much using more services. As we can see here, we've got 87,000 users, and I'm going to pick on OneDrive now. So of those 87,000 users, roughly 68% of them are using OneDrive within the last 30 days. Now, if we look at a bit more detail of that, they're storing 3.9 billion files within the OneDrive estate. So this is really important to understand how your users are actually using the services, because 3.9 billion files sounds a lot, but then actually put it with the data stored, 7.7 petabytes worth of data. Yeah, that's 7.7 petabytes worth of data spread across 68% of 87,000 users. That's about 1.4, 1.5 terabytes worth of data per user that they are storing on OneDrive. And you look at that and you go, hold on, my hard drive's got about 1 terabyte worth of storage. I'm using nowhere near that. That sounds an awful lot for a customer. So we go in and we look at the actual usage of this. Now, what we saw here is that there is a media company, so there's lots of large video files. IT departments had lots of images, lots of files that were about 4.3 gig in size, which is the size of a DVD typically. So this was really right for the customer. It allows them to understand what's going on within their organization. So we're now going to look a bit deeper into these actual usage numbers. So if we drill down into that data, we can now see what service adoption looks like in a bit more detail. We've got our adoption levels across the different product sets. And in this particular customer, we can see Yammer is actually being used. That shocked me. I've never seen that much use of Yammer in anywhere. But what's key about understanding these numbers is the section next to it, which is how active they are. So we can see that the majority of the users, 93%, are using it within a 30-day period, and then we can see it drop off. What's really important out of this screen, though, is we can see 1% of the users have never used these services. So we want to drill into that information and find out who they are and help with their education to say, why aren't you using this? Do you need some more training? Do you need some more guidance? And that's where you can look to third parties like SHI who provide training services and adoption services to help these push forward. And they really are great bits of information to understand how to use these products. So let's go back to Yammer. I said Yammer is a really interesting point here because we can see actual usage. So of our active users, so again, that is the people that have used the service in the last 30 days, 40% of them have used Yammer. But we need to use that information in conjunction with the number of days of average usage. So we can see 85 days here is how often that they are on average being used. So these are people that are actively using some service within 30-day period, but then they're not using Yammer, averaging 85 days, which means that it's probably once a quarter they're logging into Yammer. So the first number on the left, it looks really good. We've got 40% usage of Yammer. But then if I say, and they're only using it once a quarter, doesn't sound so good. So you need to bring all of this data together on a single view for analysis to really understand how this is going to be of value to your organization. What we're really looking for is something like this, where we see Exchange and SharePoint, both their utilizations are above 90%, and the average day usage is 7 days and 8 days. I can hear you say, Stuart, Exchange last use of 7 days average. That sounds really bad because most organizations like ourselves are on email constantly. We never leave it alone. Now, this particular customer we're looking at here, they have a lot of factory workers. So this is numbers out on the floor, people that are logging into a single console once a week, every now and again, to see their email, to see the corporate intranet and things like that. They are not particularly office-based workers. They've just been given subscriptions to access email online and to access SharePoint services from their organization. Now, if we take a look at the bottom section here, we also see information about inactive users. This is probably the most important section for you to understand within your organization. As I was mentioning before, these are the people you need to target and say, why are you not using this? Why are you not getting value out of this product that we have provided to you? And great, we've got a wonderful snapshot here. We know at the point when this image was taken, there was 9,381 users who had not used Exchange in the last 30 days. But we need to know, is that good? Is that bad? How's that happening? So we then need to trend those lines out. So as you see here, we've trended 3 of those inactive accounts: Exchange, OneDrive, and Teams. And we can see they're on a downward trend, which is really good to see. If we were seeing those numbers going up, there'd be something we need to act upon. But this allows you as an organization to see what's going on, where do you need to concentrate your understanding and your training of your people. Now, I'm going to pick on Teams at the moment. We've all seen the news at the moment. We're all living it. We're living on Teams, as one of the adverts says in the UK at the moment. It's very much up in usage. I think Microsoft's saying the numbers are up about 70% on their user base. And we want to understand how people are communicating within our organizations, and we can use the data to do that. So if we delve into that Teams data now, we can see within this particular organization, there's around 7,700 chats going on each day within group environments. So those dashboards within Teams that you communicate with your group on. But what we also see is about another 6,000 chat messages going on. So my message between myself and my boss, those types of things. So we can see how our organization is communicating and put that alongside our Skype messages, across our email messages, and really compare over time to see how communication happens within our organization. Another area that's useful to understand how your people actually get the use out of the products is this section here that tells us what is the device usage that they are using. Unsurprisingly for Teams, a majority of people are accessing it through the Word application, through the Windows application. But Microsoft positioned Teams as being a product that allows you to communicate and collaborate wherever you are. And we're actually seeing good view of this for this particular customer. We can see 30,000 users almost have used the web interface, not just the application on their PC. And we can see a relatively low adoption, but using it on Android, using it on iOS. So they're using them on their mobile phones, they're using them on their tablets, and are actually getting the most out of these products to communicate whilst they're on the move. And again, we want to see what that looks like over time. You can see we've trended here the average calls per day, average chats per day, and private messages per day. So we can see what's going on within our organization. This one, obviously, they've had a little bit of a peak. We can see there, and then it's died down a bit. So possibly at the start of the COVID outbreak when lots of messaging was going around, but then we can see that's died down as normal activities has resumed within their organization. We talk about what they're using, but it's also what they're not using. If we look at this data here, we can see that 17.5% of the organization have never activated a copy of Office on a local machine. Now, if you remember what I said earlier, this particular customer is got a lot of factory workers, so they don't actually log in and use Word, use Outlook and things like that. So this is not a surprising number for this particular customer. But then also remember, they've bought E3 for everybody, so they have paid for everybody to be able to have Windows, Office installed locally on a machine. So was it the right purchase for them? We don't know until we actually start pulling all of this data together. All of this data you will see in some places, either on a Microsoft licensing portal, 365 portal, Azure portal, AD portal, all of this information is out there, but you need to pull it all together to see it as one in a single pane of glass to really identify what's going on. And this is why it's important. So let's look at this same customer. They have a potential monthly saving of $109,000. So by right sizing their subscription levels, they have the potential to save 1.3 million on an annual subscription. It's absolutely crazy money. And remember, this was a customer that had good adoption. They are really using it, but there was still so much to be saved in their organization by identifying how people are using the products out there. If we look at the breakdown of where that saving is, $25,000 a month worth of savings against disabled users. So this is literally, we are paying licenses for people that cannot access these systems. It's a process point now. We ask the question, why are those accounts disabled? If they're disabled for legitimate reasons, should we then be freeing up the subscription? Should we be taking them offline? Should those subscriptions be on legal hold or something like that? There is not just technology here, there's process and people behind all of this to get it right. If you want to have savings consistently, you need to have processes to understand this. We've got the simple saving there of $54,000 from potential downgrade. So that's people that are currently on an E3 that could live with an F3, for example. It's very much about understanding how people are using the products, where the people are using the products. So we're going to open the poll for one last time. So on average, what percentage do we think people are overspending on their 365 subscriptions across the entire user base that we've run this service through? So thank you, Lauren. With this. And everybody's thinking the overspend. There's not many going for the, oh, there we go. We've got our 5% and 10%.
It looks like people are probably between 15 and 20%.
Looks so.
Okay, so we have some good answers across the board. Okay, so we'll give it a couple more moments and we'll close it down in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. There you go, Stu.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you very much. So that's not a bad guess there, or an educated guess, 10 to 15%. And this is really a question that you should be asking yourself. If you've got Microsoft 365, Office 365, or any SaaS-based agreement where you're paying a monthly subscription fee. How much am I overspending? The traditional ITAM conversation around compliance is no longer the one that is prevalent here. We want to understand where we're overspending and claw that money back. In financial tight times, as we are entering now, we need to make sure that we're spending the money in the right place. So, Lauren, if we go back to our slides, please. Thank you very much. So let's have a look at the data that we're seeing within ours. We see one customer that's at 1%. They were the one that 100% adoption rate. They very much understood their organization. They planned it. They used this data to justify and verify their position within the organization. On average, we're seeing people overspend 23.6%, so a little bit higher than what the group entered in our poll just then. But we do see some customers overspending as bad as 66%. And really, this sits across the board. This is government, this is education, this is enterprise. There's lots of plans out there, and Microsoft will push you to go towards the bigger discounts. And really understanding your product set is where you need to be. So let's talk about how all of this works. So what we do here at SHI is go to Microsoft and we collect all of the data from O365 and Azure portals and bring that back to our services. And we apply some AI algorithms against that to then take all of that data that we've just been looking at, things like, is the user active? When did they last log in? Are they sending and receiving emails? There's a great indicator of whether somebody is an active user. How many emails have they received against how many emails have they sent? Not just have they logged into email, are they actually using the email? Which services have they used? How much data they're storing? We saw on the slides at the beginning of the presentation, there's different limitations. So if you are on an E5 or an E3 plan on OneDrive, you get unlimited storage, which is great news for our customer with 7.6 petabytes worth of data currently stored on OneDrive. You're not having those storage fees on-prem. Microsoft are hitting that as part of your subscriptions. But then there are moaning customers, they won't have anywhere near that amount of data. So they can be below that 1 terabyte limit that is on the E1 and F1 plan. Sorry, F1's 2 gigabytes. So it really needs to identify how people are using those services that are out there. And then finally, we present that data out. So we present it in 2 places. Customers that are part of SHI One portal, which is a new service from SHI, they get their data there. Also, customers who come directly through the ITAM group, they have it through our Data Insights portal, which is the screens you've just been seeing as we go through there. Proper preparation prevents poor performance. And you've got to say this over and over again. Proper preparation prevents poor performance. It's the mantra that we all should work to in an ITAM environment. If you get things right when you sign the contract, when somebody comes along and says, we want to do a verification check, yeah, come on in. We'll guide you through. We'll give you all the information you need. You have to get it right at the start. Trying to get it right after the event is a lot more difficult. So going to pick up on a few points now. Data-driven profiles. This is something that we really are big advocates. If you've already deployed 365, as most people have, you will have the area to set up profiles and personas for people to identify what they need. And this is very much where you need to do a business assessment across all of your organization. If you've got somebody that sits at the same desk every day, they come in, they do the same thing, they're using basic functionality within the services, can they work with the web apps? Maybe there's an option there. The people that are out on the road or remote, they need the local apps installed on their machine because they haven't necessarily got internet connectivity. Use the triggers and use the data to identify the triggers within your organizations, and you can apply these different profiles to the different type of individuals within your organization to meet their business requirements in the most cost-effective manner. I can't stress enough how key it is to get these profiles defined within your organization and understand those trigger points. That's how you prevent overspending in the first place. So we've got our services out there. We want to look at this data. What do we do? There's a couple of things that you need to be aware of. floor limits. What we're talking about here is when you sign up to an enterprise agreement, you sign at, let's say, 1,000 users in the first year. In year 2, you up it to 1,500 users, but then something happens in your organization. COVID, for example, COVID comes along, you reduce your workforce down to 900. But because you signed your EA at 1,000, you can only go down to 1,000. That is as low as you can go. So those enterprise class products have that limit. So make sure that you understand what you're signing when you go into your EA. Remember, there is products and services enterprise agreements, there is services only agreements. You can use the different benefits and values out of those as long as you understand the limitations that come along with them also. For example, the F plans that we've spoken about there, they are not classed as enterprise products. They are classed as services add-ons. So as long as you are meeting your enterprise commitment and then you add people as F subscriptions rather than E subscriptions, then you can bring that number all the way down to 0 if you need. So that applies for the additional products like Visio, Projects, Power BI, all of those things. They are not part of your enterprise commit numbers, so you can bring them down to a 0 count. And this is what we talk about with mix and match. Make sure you understand, I've got a flexible workforce. I've got, let's say, 200 additional workforce come in during the holiday period because I'm a retail organization. You can spin those numbers up at that point by using a services only EA that covers your core workforce, and then a CSP contract that covers that flex that you have. So you're only paying for the months that the people actually have subscriptions, rather than being on the EA and having to pay for the full year for those people. So make sure you understand what your workforce looks like. And again, that refers back to what we were just talking about of profiles. Another one that catches a lot of customers out, Core Cal Bridge. If you are in hybrid and you're migrating from a traditional EA agreement with on-prem allocations of Core Cal or Enterprise Cal and Office 365, you still have to meet those commitments. But Microsoft 365 as a bundle does not include some of the CALs that you have committed to, namely System Center. So you still need Core Cal bridges. You need those extra things that are not necessarily visible in the data that comes back from Microsoft. And we've just spoken about the exemption parts. We very much have the F plans, which are not part of the count. So lots of things that go on there. Another little tip that we saw, if you've got a Microsoft plan, remember you have some guest accounts there. So if you've got contractors that are coming on, let's say you contract out your service desk, if they just need access to your network, they want to use the multi-factor authentication, they want to use the Azure AD capabilities, you can bring them on as a guest because they are working for you for your benefit. Now, the moment they do something that's not for you, then they're no longer a guest and they need to be fully licensed. But there is lots of things that you need to look at and understand exactly how your business is working. Otherwise, you will be overspending in these areas. So let's talk about the benefits of doing all this. Firstly, it's continuous license and security compliance. One of the big things that we see with this is that lots of people are just mindly going forward as they've always been with their deployments. We saw one customer who was adamant that people were using Office 365 Pro Plus installed on a machine, yet the data was saying that those users had never activated a product. On investigation of that, we saw that their install method was putting the security token in the computer file rather than the user file. Now, this meant that those people that were having E1 subscriptions were able to get the benefit of an E3 subscription if an E3 subscriber had been on that machine previously. So shared devices, how Office is deployed, how you are managing subscriptions really comes into it, because that then put them out of compliance. And they were very complacent with the view with Microsoft of, it's 365, it's subscriber based, I can't be out of compliance, but they were out of compliance. And of course, that also gives a security risk, because you're not quite sure where information is going, where it's been used, because you're not getting the full information about how people are using 365 products within your estate. OneDrive is a great one for the security compliance. You need to monitor OneDrive because you need to understand what files have been shared, whether they've been shared internally, whether they've been shared externally, whether they've been shared with anonymous links. These are all bits of information that make sure that your organization stays secure. Reclaiming of unused, unutilized technology. This has got to be the key bit why you're all listening to me today, hopefully. Let's identify what's not being used out there, bring those subscription numbers down, and use that fund somewhere else within the organization to get better value. We all have tight budgets these days. We need to make sure we're effectively spending it. And that leads into the next point there, obviously, of optimized purchase and reduced IT costs. If you run these types of services ahead of your renewals, ahead of your true ups, you then have the same information that Microsoft has. Because remember, when you true up your 365, Microsoft see all your usage data on their service. There is no, oh, I think it's about 3,000. Microsoft know it's exactly 2,861. That level of detail is held by Microsoft. So, going in there, bringing that number down where it is right to bring it down is really key to making sure you get the best deals on your agreements as you go forward. Renewal and expiration tracking, we zombie walk, I call it, into our renewals. When we come into 365 renewals, they just grow and grow and grow. We have new people in the organization, we buy them a new subscription. We don't know really how much they're using those. We don't know when the renewals are always going to be. If we've got CSP contracts with different renewal dates for different subscriptions, it gets very complex to manage all of this. And we need to bring that all together, which then leads us into the maximization of ROI, of course. If we're spending $28 a month on Microsoft 365, we want to get more than $28 worth of value out of that product. We spend on this technology to bring value to our organization. So, starting to close out now, and we'll go to the questions shortly. Please feel free to sign up to this service from SHI. If you scan the QR code there, it will take you to the registration page. Very simple page, provide some information. The data will then be back with you within 48 hours. You can see all of those charts that we were just seeing previously and a lot more, along with information that says whether there is optimization capabilities within your data set. So really powerful, really useful information. And I say, to understand whether there's something to talk about there, it's free. It takes 5 minutes to sign up. So I strongly encourage anybody who's thinking about this, sign up, give it a try. If it doesn't give you anything, it's 5 minutes of your time that's been taken around that. So we will look to move on now, Lauren, to any questions that have been coming through as we've been talking there.
Great, thank you, Stuart. Let's switch over to Q&A. So the first couple of questions were around getting access to this information. So the first one, do you need to install something on your devices to get this information?
No, and this is really the value of this type of service and this information. It's directly on the Microsoft service. So this is no monitoring of your web URLs. It's no extra load on your network to scan your network. It's what Microsoft see on the usage of their servers. We query that on a regular basis, pull that in and present that back. And as I say, no, it doesn't need anything locally, and it's great information because it's updated in real time.
Okay, the next question is, I just signed an EA. I can't change anything for a few years. What's the point of doing this right now if I can't fix anything?
So yeah, depends how you've signed into that EA and things. So if you've got a EA with your 365 number, as we were saying earlier, you can only go in their e-plans, you can only go down as low as you signed it in there. But this is about making sure that you are right for your true-up point. So you may not be able to change for a few years below the level that you signed, but you can make sure that any growth is controlled and understood. You know exactly what those numbers are going to be, so you can do all of your forecasting. And it really is about being pre-armed for when you get to the true-up and when you get to your renewal points.
So the next question is about accessing the tool, the service that you're demonstrating. How do people access that information?
Yeah, so the links on that slide that we had up previously, as we were saying, we're going to send all of this deck out, so you'll get that information. You go to that URL or scan that QR code, that will take you to the registration page. All that's needed from your side of things is 3 bits of information from your 365 portal. There's a step-by-step guide of how to pull that information from your portal. You put that information in and the data is collected and presented within 24 hours. Now, what I would really recommend here, anybody that's wanting a demonstration of this service, is sign up to the service. It's free. It takes 10-15 minutes at most to get through all of this and to look at the data. And therefore, you're building your business case, not with demo data, but your actual data. We can do a demonstration with your data and go, look, we can see these potential savings. Let's have a talk if there's anything further there. If you just want to see if there's potential savings or not, you can look at it and then walk away and do whatever you need to. So by all means, reach out to the itam@shi.com address. Also, those guys there will make sure you get directed in the right direction.
Yeah, and I'll send out the registration link when I send out the recordings to everybody on this call. So good stuff. Okay, so moving on. The next question is, as a company, we have lost a large number of staff, so we'll need to reduce our O365 licenses. And how do we identify accounts to close out?
And that's exactly what the service is designed to do. So it's looking at those utilization numbers. As we've gone across there, the AI looks at it and pulls that back and asks the questions of it. Is this an active user? As gave us the example before, how many files have they got on OneDrive? How many emails, not necessarily are they receiving, but how many emails are they sending? When was the last time they sent an email? It shows whether somebody is actually an active user or not. There's lots of data points that tell us whether somebody is real or not. We see a number of people that will allocate licenses to a conference room because they think that that's what they need to license the usage of the Surface dashboard or whatever they have in there for presentation. So that's absolutely a great way to look at it. Is just load your data into the system or connect your data up to the system rather, and it will show you exactly which accounts can be disabled, which accounts can be reclaimed.
Okay. So the next question, I'm pretty sure I've asked you on more than one occasion. Please explain the difference. And I think I just closed it out by accident, but please explain the difference between M365 and O365.
Great question, Lauren. As you say, it's one that comes up so often. So Microsoft added extra confusion to this conversation recently as well, because in the consumer set of products, they rebranded from Office 365 to Microsoft 365. But we're very much talking about the commercial space here. So Office 365 is the small bit, it's the Office product. So it's Office Professional Plus, it's the SharePoint, it's Exchange, it's all the productivity side of things that you work with. Now, Microsoft 365 is when you then bundle on EMS, so Enterprise Mobility and Security, and Windows. So Microsoft 365 is basically a whole workstation. It's everything you need to work. It's all your operating system, it's all your security, it's all your productivity tools. Office 365 is just your productivity tools.
Okay, the next two questions are around adoption, so I'll just combine them. Can SHI help us drive better adoption within our organization, and how would you recommend increasing service adoption?
Yeah, another great question, because obviously we can save money by shutting things down, but actually what we really want is return of investment. We want people to use this technology that we're providing them. So absolutely, SHI can help in this area. We have a great tech training team, and I personally have received that training at the end of last year, sat through that. I've been a power user of Office since probably 95 version, 97 version, so a long time ago, 20 odd years of using Office. And I thought I knew it really well, but learning some of the new tricks within Office 365, some of the stuff that Microsoft brought to the surface, it's great. And remember, Microsoft are putting all of their new enhancements in the Office 365 version. So if you're on Office 2019, you're quite behind on some of those enhancements and features around there. So there is definitely a bit to make sure that we train people to get the return of investment. And we can do that by identifying those that need those additional helps. We use a service within SHI that allows us to identify training clips, and they're also little e-packets of helping people get that little bit more out of Teams, get that little bit more out of Sway, and things like that. We also have adoption teams that help you with the planning, helping you with the implementation. So you may have most of your organization on a file and print servers and you want to move to OneDrive. We've got teams that will help with those types of strategies and implementations of those strategies.
Okay, great. So the next question is around the summary data that you presented. Is it also available in a Microsoft application?
Trying to interpret the question a bit. Yes and no. So a lot of the data that you've just seen there is fully available from Microsoft. So one of the services that you get as part of your 365 is a product called My Analytics. And that identifies you as an individual, what your usage is. You can see lots of information on there. If you've not had a look at that and you've got a 365 subscription, go have a look, office.com, log in as yourself. You'll see it there as one of the tools. Gives you a good insight as to how you're using the 365 products. As an organizational layer, you can pull the data out of Microsoft Portal into a Power BI template. So again, this is done from the admin console. You go in and link it to your Power BI. Now, the difference there is obviously Power BI is not a free product. Power BI needs a license. Service we're offering here is a free service to identify if there's savings. So in a word, yes, but you can't see the savings. It's not in Microsoft's interest to actually say downgrade or right size this, right size that. They want you to get the return of investment, and we want you to get the return of investment as well. And that's why we try to draw everything together to help show that as a combined message rather than a singular message.
Great. Okay, so moving on, is there a way to determine what users are using, accessing Teams? Are we able to from a particular device?
Good question. That bit would come up in My Analytics if I'm correct, but that's not available as data as an organizational level. So that's actually a request that we've got in our development group, and therefore also onto Microsoft as well, is to make that information available. So if you go into your profile within office.com, you can see what device you have activated Office or Outlook, Exchange, whatever, on, but you can't see what devices you've connected to for Teams, for Exchange, Outlook, Web Access, and things like that. So that data is not currently made available by Microsoft. Whether it ever will be, I don't know, but we have it there and is a development request to Microsoft.
Okay, so our last question is, how long can I retain a user's files after they've decommissioned the subscription?
So generally it's 30 days, but there's lots of ways to handle this. It depends what you're wanting to do. So if you've got what you can do is you can change something from being a individual account to being a group account, for example. So if you're looking to retain the emails that somebody sent, then you change that to a group mailbox, and therefore anybody that is correctly licensed can access that group mailbox. You also have litigation hold, so that you have certain files, certain emails and things that are all kept based on that. There's third-party services that allow you to move the data from the Office 365 servers and retain it separately in another area. So the default is that it's destroyed after 30 days, but there is ways around making sure that that data doesn't get destroyed if that's what your organization wants to do.
Okay, we have another question that came in. Can't we just do this sort of thing with Power BI?
And that's exactly what we were saying before. You can do most of this with Power BI. Microsoft have the template that you can get from the Office administration portal or O365 administration portal. But it doesn't pull it together to give you those recommendations. So you could see the utilization, but you're not seeing it side by side with that extra bit of information. You can see that you've got 45,000 users of Exchange, but you're not seeing what's the average days that they used it from. You're not seeing the AI algorithms against it to identify who needs training, where are savings to be made. So you can do parts of it with Power BI, yes.
Great. So that was our last question. If anybody has any additional ones, just really quickly, we'll still keep it open. But thank you so much, Stuart. That was extremely helpful information. Again, if you have additional questions, you think of them afterwards, please email us at itam@shi.com and we'll get back to you. So again, thank you so much, Stuart. And thank you to everybody. And we hope everybody stays well, has a great rest of your day. Thanks again.
Lauren, can we just go back to the slides? One last thing that I wanted to just push as we finish through here. We've got a couple more events coming up in June. So my slide doesn't want to go on. There we go. So if you're not already registered to these events, these are all free events that are either SHI generated or also we're at the ITAM Reviews Wisdom Online. So lots more good information, not just Office 365, general ITAM conversations, really, really good material going out there. So get registered for those events, everybody, and learn some more information whilst we're all stuck at home, trying to see where we end up with all of this good new world that we work in of SaaS software.
Perfect. Okay. Thank you so much. And thanks, everybody. Have a great rest of your day.
Thank you for your time, everybody. Have a good day.